Alright, g'day again everyone. Okay, we're back on my Ford. The Ford that appears blue but it's actually green. It's still green. Wish it was that blue actually. It's nicer than the green. But anyway, you get that. Beside the point. We've just put some new shockies in it. I've just put new Pettis shocks all around. I was wanting to put sports riders in it, but because I had a really good run with the sports rider shocks. Yep. Yeah, 20 years out of the set that I put on the van. And yeah, that got a heavy duty treatment. It really did. Anyway, I had a bit of an issue. Backs were easy, real easy. About the hardest part of that is pulling the seat forward and taking the panel off to get to the top nut. But anyway, front's a different matter. We got to take the upper control arms off, which means that when you've got to take note of where your spaces are, your camber spaces. If you just undo them and pull them forward and they all fall out the floor, well, you won't know which way to put them back in again, so sort of undo one. We got to loosen both of them, but undo one side. Like when I say one side, you've got a front and a rear on your upper control arm, and so undo one side of the upper control arm, take the spaces out, and put them on that side, so that you know how many and which ones to go back in. Don't mix them up. Right, so it probably would have been easier to actually undo the lower control arm from the body, from the subframe, but I didn't. I got a big 6 foot long crowbar, and I just wedged that in underneath it and sat on it to pull it down, and it is a tight fit, to get your whole strut back out of the car again. But the main issue I had is when I put the new springs in, and you'll see use spring clamps, like don't ever undo that top nut without your spring clamps done up, or it'll just fly apart. And seriously, that cap can come off at such a speed, if it could hit your head, and it could knock you unconscious. It could even kill you if it hit in the right spot. A lot of force in it. And even when you got your spring clamps on, just in case they were to fail, slip off, like my spring clamps, they're actually designed for a bigger spring, so they didn't fit that well on the spring to begin with. So yeah, be conscious of that. Like when you're working on it, don't have your body or your head in front of it, just in case it does break, come off or anything, so it doesn't fly off and hit you. It's just a safety issue. Anyway, the biggest issue I had was lining it up. You got 3 bolts on the top, and I should have left them pointed up so I could show you, but anyway, if you've got a Ford, you know what I'm talking about. But you'll put your new shockies in, your springs in, and you line them up, on the base plate and on the top rubber cap to where they're supposed to go, and then you go to put them in the car and your pins won't line up. And on this right hand side, the driver's side, I put the spring clamps back on, and I just moved them that little bit. I try and keep your bottom one like fully to where it's supposed to go. If you got to move the rubber bit on the top. But anyway, I sighted that by eye and got that to line up. The left hand one, I just couldn't get it to line up properly, like with the 3 bolt holes on top once I get it fitted in, and I ended up having to put the spring clamps back on and get it in the car, with the spring clamps done up and the shocky nut on the top loose, and actually maneuver it around in the car to get it to line up. And I had an issue in that I couldn't actually fully push it into place because the spring clamps were hitting the, the inner guards and the strap mounts and that sort of thing. But I was able to get it lined up and then release the spring clamps while I had it in place. So the other thing I've been doing, I noticed when I went to open the boot to get the wheel brace that this thing's been loose, but I noticed it was only holding on by one mount, and so I've epoxied that. I probably should have done it last night, but I didn't finish this getting the shockies and things back on till 1:30 in the morning, and I'd had enough by then. But so I've epoxied between these 3 broken chrome strip mounts. You can see them in there, and it's set, but it's still tacky. It's actually a bit cold. It's wet outside. I have gone over them with a heat gun. I think I'll do it again yet. So need to go out soon. I want to put it on. I want it to be actually set properly before I go driving it. But that's a little sideline issue. The other issue I had, I've been chasing this noise for ages, and which is sort of why I put the new shockies on. I've replaced all the bushes and everything. Still got a little bit of movement in a couple of the ball joints, so they're going to happen later on. I couldn't do them right now because my press won't push them together. I've got to take them out and then go in, take them into another workshop with a bigger press. And the place where I take him, he's got a 20-ton press, and that is still struggling to put them in. That's how tight these ball joints are on these cars. But what was the point I was getting to? I sort of been chasing this noise, and the shockies were graining a bit, and they were pretty sloppy. The car was sort of starting to get a whole lot of sway on it, so that's why I've gone and done the shockies. But I've since discovered, just in the last couple of days, what the actual noise is that I've been chasing, and it's in the rack and pinion. And what it was is this is your pinion shaft that goes to your steering column, and that was actually moving sideways and making a noise. It was moving within the housing. This is this housing here, and this is actually a 6-cylinder power steering rack, because it's got the switch there. This is a switch. It's a pressure switch, which only has it on 6 cylinders, and they up the revs a little bit when you turn the steering but the V8s don't need it, so I've actually taken that off and plugged it up because it gets in the way anyway. So if it's not needed, might as well get it out of the way. But inside here there was a bearing and a seal, and I tried to pop the bearing out of this one, and I give it a very light, only give it a little light tap, and all the rollers just fell straight out. Like this was just completely had it. And that's the outer bearing. Hoping there's numbers on that. Can't actually see without my glasses on, but what I did was I swapped it over. This is the one off the car, and I swapped it with the one off this. This rack and pinion was a spare, and I put it in, but the seals are gone in here. It just pours fluid out of either end, so I took it back out again. And the bearings that were on this were still a little bit loose, but they were better than the one that was in it. So I sort of improved on it a little bit, but I've still got to take it off again. I've got to try and get a new bearing and a new seal. This is the issue, in that the seal was actually better on the original one than on this. The one that came off this, the seal was just hard as. But it's not leaking fluid out of it. And yeah, it sort of makes me wonder, like I've had this whining issue, and what the whining is caused by air in your lines. And for it to be continuously whining, continuously frothing, it has to be drawing air in somewhere. And I think, yeah, because it hasn't leaked out of the seal, which is absolutely hard as, it must be a sort of a vacuum point here rather than a pressure. And I think it's actually drawing air in around this top seal. Could be wrong on that, that's only a guess. But anyway, there'll be a follow-up video on that, because I'll let you know if I can actually get this bearing that goes in here. The seal won't be an issue, but hopefully I can get this bearing. And if I can't get the right bearing, well, then I'll probably go into the engineer and just get a brass bush made up or something. So if it can be done cheaply, you know, like your best option when you get to this sort of problem is to replace the whole rack and pinion, you know, because there's other components that are worn in it. But yeah, I just spent $800 on chockies. I'll have another $700 or $800 to spend on a rack and pinion now, so I'm gonna have to get by with what I can do myself and what I can afford to do. The other thing that I did do was there you can adjust the tension on this pinion, and it doesn't actually push the pinion, but it pushes the rack onto the pinion. See, so you loosen this nut, and then what I did was I just got a bolt that fits in there. It's a 9mm, and I just clamped the vice grips on it. It's not a lot of tension. So this one's a bit harder. You really should have a ring spanner. I had a huge shifter, or yeah, adjustable wrench, according to as you call them in America. They're called a shifter in Australia, but yeah, it wanted to slip off it, you know, especially like under the car. It was a difficult thing undoing and doing this thing back up. So if you could get a flat ring spanner or any ring spanner that will fit on there, you'd do a whole lot better. But anyway, as I said, you loosen that a couple of turns, and then you just turn this in. In the book it says do it up to 12 Newton meters and then back it off again 20 degrees. But yeah, what I did, I just did it up to a guess at where, you know, you can feel when it hits the shaft, you know, and you just sort of go a little bit and back it off and sort of just bring it up until you can feel it putting a little bit of pressure on it. So yeah, just gauge it, and then go and test your steering and make sure it's not binding or anything. But yeah, that was sort of probably 3/4 of a turn that I did on that, just to take the psych out of it. So yeah, and it has made a difference to the steering. And the steering, like as I said, this bearing needs to be replaced on the top. There's still that little bit of sideways movement, but yeah, there's far less play in it now than there was. So anyway, I'll stop rambling and I'll do an update on this when I know whether I can get another bearing to fit in it. And yeah, be careful with your lines. I had a lot of issues. I had to actually, because this goes back on top, these two side pipes go back into it, and I just took them off on this one, but I didn't take them right off on the other one. But I did loosen both ends just to give it that little bit of movement, make it easier to undo up here. And the ones that go on the back, the ones that go to your pump, these big ones, they're a 19mm spanner, and you undo the top. And it'd help actually if you had a short spanner. My 9mm I was getting an issue, and the length of the spanner was, you know, hitting on the exhaust and hitting on everything else. But you undo the top one here, and you got to get that pipe right out of the way to be able to get the spanner onto the bottom one. So yeah, it's quite a, and you can't see it, so you're just going by feel. It's really quite difficult. And I managed to get it off, but then I couldn't get it to screw back in. I was really having a problem with it. And what I did was I followed the line right around the front of the car and undid the clamp that goes onto the subframe around the front of the car, and that gave it enough manoeuvrability then to be able to get them back in and do it up. So yeah, these yeah, there's a ball joint in the end of these tie rods. That's also, you can also do that up, you can adjust that up as well. Mine don't need that, but yeah, that's behind these. You put the rubbers back and you can actually tighten them up. So, yeah. Alright, well, we'll leave it at that, and hope this bit of a ramble is helpful to someone, and yeah, hit a like please. Bye.